Today is basically the start of Deaf Awareness Month. Many of you already know my view of that because it doesn't matter if we start with Black History Month or now Women's History Month and now the beginning of Deaf History Month. It's all the same. I say all same. Why? Because if we're focused on Black history or women's history or LGBTQ history or Asian history or what's the difference? We, the deaf, big D-centric community must emphasize deaf inclusion as part of that history, any history. So we see what? Deaf Black talents. We see deaf women's history. We see post deaf LGBTQ history, and etc., etc. That's my point. Anyway, continue fighting oppression and uplifting awareness about oppressed minority groups, etc., etc., etc. I recently heard the phrase that right now is labeled Generation C for COVID, of course, but for me, I would label it a little bit more for this generation. I would call it Generation C45 because of, Trump. This generation had a dual hell that will inform the rest of their life, just same as the Depression influenced, impacted the rest of the lives of young people living way back during the Great Depression. So that's my view this morning. That's what's on my mind as we begin the formal Deaf Awareness Month. I know people will be posting a lot, and possibly most of the posts will emphasize positive achievements of variety of deaf and hard of hearing people in a whole variety of ways. And that's fine. But me, I will emphasize the opposite. I plan to emphasize the ABCs about deaf autism experiences and the fact that autism still today rages against the positive outcomes for fabulous deaf human potential to do what? To skyrocket. Not happening. Some ways, yes, I call this wrinkle in time, this specific moment in history right now, schizophrenic. Why? Because over here we have so much deaf culture exploding all over the world of entertainment, and it's fabulous for raising consciousness about the abilities and talents and potential of all deaf people. On the other side, we have what's happening right now with deaf schools being pushed to close by, for example, California right now, fighting a bill that will emphasize renewal of LRE. LRE, from the start, a least restrictive environment for all children with disabilities across the board. We have known from the start of LRE during the 80s that LRE for many students is I call it a death knell for deaf students, because the result of LRE, as it's defined by the people in power, mostly special ed people, etc., who know nothing, who remain clueless about the best practices for all deaf children. They are pushing, politically pushing and pushing again for all children to be placed in mainstream school, meaning public school classrooms, etc. We can discuss this forever, but more than discussing, we need action. So I strongly recommend you contact Julie Rems, Smario, and CAD, California Association of the Deaf, and Cal Ed for details about the action we need to take right now and run with it. We must not permit this bill to pass. So let me know your feedback about my ideas this morning. No coincidences, we face the start of 2021 Deaf Awareness Month. Let's us, you and me, be really aware of what's going on and not just smile and say positive things when the audists are marching forward with all their money and power and influence, especially with more generations of hearing parents like me. Stop autism. That love. Feel free, please, to contact me about anything, especially other today. Taking that journey. So much pressure on them to run for CIs and block ASL and deaf culture, etc., etc. Love and strength and health, physical and emotional and mental health. I need to add a quick P.S. P period S period, specifically for who hearing parents. Please, if you are with me and you reflect back to the early years when you decided to follow the A.G. Bell way, but later you lived to regret doing that, and later you embraced ASL and every single part of deaf culture and led the rest of your family's life to witness it improve and become bilingual and bicultural with respect for two languages and two cultures, at least deaf and hearing, ASL and English Blue. Why? Because you learned an important thing. You learned that A.G. Bell proselytizing about ASL being what? A negative impact on your child's ability to learn and read and write was a huge lie. So let's discuss more, but right now, please pay attention to hearing parents who finish learning the hard way, because you do not need to run and get a CI this minute. Wait, think, learn about language first, and don't believe that English is the language every child must learn first. It's not. For deaf children must what? ASL first and add English as a second language, and boom, they will become bilingual. If you study second language learning, all the great linguists in history will tell you that it doesn't matter which language any child acquires first, as long as they do acquire a first language fluently. For any child with a hearing loss, that first language must be visual, and that means ASL first. I never say ASL only, but I do say ASL first. That is a known historic fact, even before all the current data to prove it. The shame is that 21st century, 2021, we still need to prove it. Because why? Autism rules America. Just see what's happening in California now. But wrong. We had many laws in this country that supported Jim Crow, for example. Well, let me tell you something. For me, we have deaf Jim Crow laws every place today. Why I say that? Because our Jim Crow laws related to deaf oppression are invisible, but they are everywhere. They are every place, posts and signs that say, for hearing people only. Don't need to post them. We just need to pay attention to our life, our lives, and our children's lives in school, out of school, every single day. They are excluded. They are experiencing fear and ignorance, living in a hearing world, same as Black people and people of color experience, same, living inside a white world. On and on and on. Many conversations need to continue about this ism. Why? Because 99% of the world never heard of that word, AUDISM. You know that's truth. Even when you type the word AUDISM, the computer flips it to AUTISM, wrong. Even the computer won't recognize the reality of autism inside our American culture and worldwide. Enough for now. I know that was a long